It was 1983, and a group of scientists was about to conduct one of the most important experiments of their lives. According to their theories, if a human was deprived of all his senses, that is, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, he would be able to perceive the presence of God. They believed that senses obstructed the union of our consciousness with the kingdom of heaven, and that our brain was connected to it through thought. The time had come to take the theories from paper to trial, and for this they'd convinced an old man to be their first test subject. The first step was to eliminate all sensory perception. For this, they performed a complex operation where the nerves responsible for sending information to the senses were damaged. The old man was still alive and could move, though his eyes could no longer see, his ears could no longer hear, nor could he taste, smell, or feel touch. The old man had been informed that he couldn't hear himself speak, but that he should try to do so, because they must know what was going through his mind. While being monitored with various machines attached to his body, the old man began to speak loudly about his current condition. The first 4 days, he claimed to be hearing in his head whispers and incoherent phrases that he didn't understand. Scientists assumed these were the beginnings of a psychosis and paid little attention to these early symptoms. 2 days later, the man claimed to be able to hear his late wife speak to him, and that he could hold a conversation with her. The scientists were intrigued, but they weren't entirely convinced until the man began to tell them about some of his deceased relatives. He narrated information and personal data that only they could know. At that point, several of the researchers became frightened and decided to drop out of the study. A week later, the man began showing signs of anxiety and restlessness, saying the voices were overwhelming. His thoughts didn't stop being agitated with hundreds of screams that refused to leave him alone. His anguish was such that he began to hit the wall. He couldn't stand that constant bombardment that harassed him. The scientists decided to give him sedatives so that he could escape those voices while sleeping. That worked for 3 days, but on the 4th, the man claimed that the dead had also entered his nightmares. Increasingly distraught and exhausted, he tried to gouge out his eyes, hoping to feel something in the physical world again. Hysterical, he shouted that the voices were unbearable. They spoke to him of hell and the end of the world. From there, he began to repeat over and over again, "There's no heaven, there's no forgiveness," while begging to be killed. The scientists were convinced that they were very close to the end of the experiment, so they didn't heed his pleas. The next phase left the man without the ability to formulate coherent sentences. He had gone mad and was beginning to bite into the flesh of his arm. So the scientists decided to tie him to the bed so that he couldn't take his own life. After several hours of struggling, the man stopped moving. He fixed his gaze on the ceiling and silent tears began to flow from his eyes. Finally, he turned his head and, despite his blindness, he made eye contact with the scientist and whispered to him as his heart gave its last beat, "I have spoken with God, and He has abandoned us." If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!